Hi. So, due to some comments in one of the videos, and I hadn't even thought of really doing this, but Airfix kits, talking about old Airfix kits and doing builds. And the reason I hadn't really thought about it is they're sort of old, simple. Well, some of them are simple. But I do a lot of Airfix builds. I actually probably have more Airfix builds on the go than anything else. And I have more old Airfix kits waiting to be built than anything else. So I might as well actually run an old Airfix series. So I'm just going to talk about some that I've put on the desk here. I have so many. I could just about do 5 to 10 every time I do a video. I'm going to just talk about random stuff, what to look for, what I'm busy with, who knows. We can discuss anything, and you can put in the comments which kits you'd like me to look at if I have them. So what I'm doing with this version, and I have quite a few of this old AIX Harvard, I'm doing a absolute straight out the box build. I don't tend to do Harvards with no bits extra on them because that's my favorite topic. So this one is primed with a light gloss grey. I can't remember what scheme I was going to do on this one. I'll have to think about it. But so what the focus on this one was, just get the construction right up to this point, and I'm happy with the way it is so far, and we'll get back to that. So I don't know how many of you are building little Harvards. A very, very simple kit, one of the simplest kits around. I mean, it's barely more complicated than the little Tiger Moth. In fact, to be honest, the Tiger Moth is more complicated because it has the struts and 2 wings. So that Harvard could be one of the absolute simplest Airfix kits out. So this little Tiger Moth is such a beauty. I didn't spray it, I hand painted it. Again, you know, there's nothing in the cockpits. A little bit of attention needs to be paid to the undercarriage, because it's a little bit of a flimsy setup. Getting struts right. Now this one has had a bit of an accident as well. I can't remember what happened to it. It might have been during the earthquakes that this one fell off. I did have a number of models smashed. So this one got a center strut added. You'll notice there's a center strut going right up, and that was just it was almost impossible to get everything back in position. So I put a center strut on there to hold the upper wing in position, and I can remove that at some stage. I still haven't found 2 of the pieces. They've possibly gone forever, but are easy to manufacture. But I have more of these, so pretty soon I will be working on the other little one that I have. Well, one of many. I've got, I think, two more in the yellow plastic. The first job, as I said in another video, was they've got horrible mold marks there, actually, of the worst mold marks that I've seen on any Airfix kit, and that'll be due to the age, mold aging, and them fixing their molds. So my goal with this one, because I have 2 of the new kits as well, but I actually I don't really want to include any new kits in when I talk about old Airfix. So when I do it, I'm building the old Tiger Moth. My focus on this one is going to be more or less to build exactly the same as this one. I might add a slight variation on the color scheme, but I do like the yellow. So I'm just going to be building another straight up out the box Airfix build. This one I actually did, I don't know if this is going to come through. The propeller came out very, very well with the coloration that I managed to get on. It's not going to come through on this video. You can just make out a nice little bit of color variation, and that is using the Games Workshop brown ink. They've got a brown and a chestnut inks. Those are two of my absolute favorite. They're not paints, they're inks, but let's call them under the paint section, to use for models for all manner of weathering or toning or things like that. If you can get your hands on those Games Workshops, which I think is now under Citadel, or I'm guessing any brown variation inks. I also use black ink, and these are toned down, so it's not as if when you put this on it's like pen ink. If you haven't used these before, it's really worthwhile. I mean, I can do a demo with that if there's need. Okay, next one up, the Dauntless. Now, I do love the Dauntless, and possibly for two reasons. It is a Pacific fighter, and I do tend to like everything that the USA used in the Pacific. Hellcat, Wildcat, Dauntless. So this particular one has got a green base coat on it, a green primer, and the reason for that was simply that I had green left over in the spray bottle, and it's fine. It's actually worked out very nicely. I have then buffed it. I haven't really spoken about that. This is a matte paint, and I don't use mattes for priming, but you can use a matte for a priming and then take a cloth and rub down the matte, and that gives you actually a very, very nice satin effect there, which you can see. Now, that's not always going to work, but because I do so many variations of everything, I end up with very interesting effects. This one has also been sanded down, I would say 90%. So there is surface detail, but it's very, very subtle. Now, whether that comes through in the final build is questionable. Certainly that bit of elevator detail will come through. Straight up, nothing extra being done to this kit. So if you're building a Dauntless, you can follow along on that one. And this will simply be done in a straight up Pacific scheme. A very nice little kit, not difficult, not complicated. Just focus on getting your symmetry right. So what I do you notice there the tips of the horizontal stabilizers over here and over here? When I look at it fore aft and I just move it down to see where it starts touching the main wings, they must touch at the same point. You can also do it there on the trailing edge of the main wings. You can do it up there, as long as you're looking dead straight and you match them up like that. Now, there is a danger in this, and actually this is quite a common danger on Airfix kits. And that is that when you position your main wings onto the fuselage, they didn't end up perfectly correctly, which means you can have one wing running a bit higher than the other one. So although you may match your tail planes to the main wing, you've now got everything misaligned because your main wings were misaligned in the first place. So this is a real big deal actually. When I talk about my interest in getting airframes right, you need to do a fair bit of dry fit and testing. You can position this on the table and determine whether your tail is going vertical. So you dry fit it into position as it's going to be. Place it on the table so that if there is a center section, so that it is in fact going to rest horizontal. Measure the height up from the table on your wingtips. Put a set square on the tail plane and measure that your tail plane is your fin is actually perfectly vertical. Because if you and I've done this many times, your main plane is a little bit wrong, and then you set everything wrong to match your main plane. Those right there are some very, very basic construction problems, and yet they still occur over and over and over again. Okay, here's another one. So there's what I'm talking about as I just position that in, and you see that there's not a lot determining the position of how this wing seats in there. It could have ended up being a little bit off like that. Same with the other side. So you need to check, obviously you need to check that that's flush there, that's flush there, but also that in fact, if you glued it in that position, is your one wing higher than your other? And as I look at this one, it's a little bit difficult to say now, but it is looking like this wing is slightly higher, which means I would want to maybe do something to get this one down. I'd have to measure that on the table. So there's another one. This one happens to be in one of the red boxes, but it's still an old Airfix. It has got a number of small parts and guns and things. But I am doing a pretty simple build. I'm probably leaving bombs off. I'm not putting pilots in. I'm not against these pilots. They're actually very, very nice, and I keep them. And I do put them in select models. Like for instance, and this is not Airfix, but I'm just going to show you the pilot. So this is a basic build as I used to build in the 80s, but I've done the one extra thing where I have fully painted the cockpit and the pilots. And I know it's difficult to come through on the video, but occasionally I do a full pilot build. So the Dauntless is a common